Hello and welcome to Motorbike TV, the brand new motorcycle show. We're here to entertain you, to captivate you and maybe even inform you just a little bit.
Don't count on the informing part.
This is Bruce Smart Arse, this is Christy Simmons, I'm Graham Hoskins, and here's a little bit of what's in store for you.
That holds the battery in.
We got batteries that have been wired on the wrong way round and fuses blown and Bruce's does not even start.
And this is what I brought you here to do.
Come on, B. Hey, Macarena.
We decided that as this is episode 1 of season 1, we needed to find a way to let our audience get to know us a bit better and for the three of us to get to know each other better.
So we thought a simple trip to the pub would do the job, but Tom, who runs the show, had other ideas.
And that's how we ended up on a wet hillside in Wales, about to take part in what we are calling the Motorcycle Olympics.
You may well be wondering why we are standing here in the cold and the driving Welsh rain. It is definitely not for our health. The reason is actually quite simple. We wanted to come up with a way of getting to know each other better as a team, because it's the first time we've done a feature together.
What was wrong with the pub?
Could the budget not stretch to just come
I'll buy the round. I'll buy the round.
If it was my choice, we'd be sitting in the pub,
Yeah.
warm evening, open fire, and a couple of drinks. But it wasn't my choice, it was Tom's. And Tom's idea was something he's called the Motorcycle Olympics. I've got no idea what it's going to involve, other than we've had 500 quid each to go out and buy a working motorbike and bring it to Sweetland. Now the fact that we're at Sweetland means there's a strong likelihood that we're going to be doing something with a bit of off-road bias.
Strong likelihood.
Cue Bruce's meltdown.
The Adventure Rally Centre. Strong likelihood we're going off-road.
Yeah, there is no tarmac here, so we are
I brought my
100%
leathers.
100% going to be doing off tarmac. But most importantly, we need to get to see the bikes, and I'm going to go first. Let me see if I can do this in one grand sweeping reveal. Almost. Oh, looky. Look at this.
It's a proper bike,
It's a
G.
proper bike.
L plates too, like it.
It is
love
the
plates.
mighty Suzuki EN125 2A Pure Sport.
I'm pleasantly surprised. I genuinely am quite surprised.
Wait until I try and start it, you won't be so surprised then. 11 horsepower, apparently a top speed of about 65 miles an hour.
My arse.
Apparently. Probably not with me on it. So I would say those are the good points. It'll take me a lot longer to go over the potentially troublesome ones. There's a slight binding on the front brakes.
You can
And-
bypass
brakes.
that.
But the slight binding is all the braking you get, really. That's about it. Rear brake's fine. Brand new chain and sprockets on it. Starting can also be a challenge.
Wow.
You're not singing anymore.
There's the winner there.
But, excuse me, I did know this was going to be a challenge. So that's why.
Well
Thinking ahead,
prepared.
jump cables. So, But that could be a problem if I'm in the middle of a challenge somewhere.
Well, then you just have to go to the pub and await.
Or bump start it. Yeah. Now, I notice you're touching my green handles.
Can't help.
That's the one thing I've had to change, because the original handlebar grips were so old and manky and sticky, they literally left black mank on your hands.
Residue.
So I did spend 525 quid on this,
Plus.
plus
You are done.
$4.99 for the grips.
Oh, cheap.
So you're not worried about the fact it doesn't start, but you thought you'd change the handle.
Or stop.
All right, I like your
Or
priorities.
stop.
Yeah. But the colours are good.
So
The colours are good.
doesn't start, I'll
Doesn't
stop.
need, doesn't need to stop when it
No,
doesn't start.
no.
But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. I have a quiet faith in it.
Yeah, I'm kind of slightly worried, really, because I thought yours might be even worse than mine, and it's not.
All right then, who's going next?
Right, my turn. I couldn't get a GS for 500 quid. However, I managed to pick up this beauty. Ish.
Ta-da!
Bear with me.
It's so hideous it doesn't want to come out.
Look at this. Look at it. This is. Look.
Yeah.
This is a Pioneer XF125R, I believe, 66 plate. I think he parked it in a harbour. And it's got a year's MOT on it. And hang on. It did start yesterday.
Okay, so we're pretty even at the moment.
£280 gets you one of these.
Wow.
I tell you what, that's a really nice looking little bike.
If there's anything left of this at the end, I'm going to make this a little project. I'm going to cafe racer her up.
I quite like it.
Maybe. He says at the moment.
It's not as bad as I thought it would be.
It'll look great in the
she's-
garage, but it doesn't go. So.
It's, you know, just a lot of rust
And if I
on the bars.
nothing actually keeps the battery in,
Yeah.
and the wiring I think was done by a hamster. But
Somebody's eating
let
your
them do that,
somebody's
it's
eating
fine.
your wing mirror.
we don't need mirrors, you know.
No,
It's all
not
right.
here.
One indicator works,
You need it to start though.
and do need it to start, and the chain is held on with half of a ring. So we'll see how
Okay.
it goes.
Even Mother Nature approves of my bike because, as you can see, it stopped raining.
Thank goodness.
Do you get the impression we've been stitched up?
Are you ready?
Something is telling me, just from the shape of this, this is a ringer coming.
Are you ready, boys?
Yeah.
Behold the beauty that is. I'll get it off.
It's got a centre.
Oh, come on.
Oh, look who it is!
No way you got that for 500 quid.
Woohoo!
Not a chance you got that for 500 quid.
I'm
I'm not going to ask.
But no, if you think about it, technically, we were given 500 quid to get a bike.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything
There's
about putting a bit more money
there's
towards
a kind of
it.
story here about an excuse and a not quite in the spirit.
Behold, the Honda CR85
Did
dirt bike.
Did you bribe Tom to tell you where we were going to be doing this?
I'm going to the pub.
And please note, she's a big wheel version. Knobbly.
Not,
Saying.
not
Just
that
saying.
I'm going to try and make excuses before we start,
Yeah.
but we're
Oh, can we swear? I've been trying to be on best behaviour. In that
we
case,
are
beep,
absolutely
beep, 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 beep.
we are in big trouble.
Well,
Yeah, you
Bruce,
win.
We are in big trouble.
it still comes down to rider capability.
I'm going to the pub.
Let's just, you know, but let's all.
And the pub's
I'm
open
not,
on a Sunday.
yeah, I'm not saying the riders blame the tools, but we're going to be blaming our bikes for losing.
No excuses, boys.
Yeah.
No excuses. So there we are. I'm
Down there for
excited
dancing.
to. I'm excited to get started.
You're excited to get winning, aren't you?
I am.
Bruce is off doing some fettling on his bike. Christy is swanning around looking very smug. And I need to get off in a second and change the battery on mine so at least I can see if it starts. But in the meantime, I'm here with Mark Molyneux,
Yep.
who is our grand designer, adjudicator, judge and
Mug.
everything else
Mug.
of the Motorbike Olympics. So you've designed what we're going to do today. Just talk me through what you're going to put us through.
Okay, well, we designed a lot really, and then they revealed the bikes. And now I haven't got a clue what we're going to do. They're just awful. So they've come with the tyres prepared, and the weather is you know, a little bit of drizzle. So that'll add something into the mix. So our timed sections will be timed less, and we're going to go more into the skills, because obviously when we've got bikes like this, they'll be ridden very skillfully with knobbly tyres on. So we're going to just alter things a little bit to suit the Olympic style motorcycles we've got.
So it is now midday and we're supposed to be at least halfway through our Olympic challenge. But as you can hear behind me and clearly see behind me, boys are having a few technical difficulties. We got batteries that have been wired on the wrong way round and fuses blown, and Bruce's does not even start. If they could have just thought outside the box a little bit and, you know, put a bit of money towards their own budgets like I did, I could have at least bought a running bike, so come on lads.
Genuinely at home, this started first go every single time. I had checked it 2 or 3 times. I checked it just before I left, and it's turning over, but it did spark and now it's not. So we've checked the fuel, there's definitely fuel coming through, and then we need to get the spark plug out and quickly go that.
Jump it.
I'm feeling gutted because it was working every single time. I had a bit of a loss with it.
I can sell it. Finding some things out about old Peggy here. Now, just topped up the fuel, and if you have a little look here, looks like they've painted the tank with emulsion. She's literally disintegrating in front of our eyes. They painted over the stickers, some gaffer tape under the blue, brown, whatever that is. Yeah, she's got character. So folks, how are we getting on? Well, Graham, is your bike starting, Graham? No! No! Christy, is your bike starting? No! Blue smoke. Blue smoke. And Peggy here. Thanks very much, Tom, for christening her Peggy. Peggy starts like a treat. Got no brakes, but she starts like a treat. So bring it on. I think I win, actually. By default, I think I've won.
Mark just changed the spark plug, so this is the last ditch attempt.
The legend! Helmet on, come on, let's go.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural Motorbike TV Motorbike Olympics, sponsored by Dunlop. I'm Tom and I will be your commentator. Oh, yep, that's not happening. So we were planning on using the presenters to do the commentary, but they're having some issues with being impartial, so you've got me instead. Before we start, there have been some last minute issues with some of the bikes, so for an update, let's go check in with Graham.
Good as new. Yeah, the bike rode the sort of 1.5 miles, I guess, up to the skills area at Sweet Lamb, and seemed to be going fine, but it stalled when I got here. Despite my best efforts of keeping it going, I guess the alternator's buggered because it's not charging the battery, there's no power to spin it over. We're going to just try and give it a little jump start, and if that works, we'll have to do that at the start of every competition, otherwise it's plan B.
So we've had a problem. We've had a problem all morning actually, but now we've got a big problem because I think the inlet valve's bent on Graham's bike, so that bike is dead. So that's going to have the Valhalla send off with a gallon of petrol. Now then, for in order to keep this thing going, we're going to have to put Graham on an 890, I'm afraid. I know, but we're going to have to handicap him severely. So he will not be able to see any of the sections. So you can practice it once, then you can do it for real. Graham will not have any practice, and he'll have to do it twice. Okay? So he's going to double the score if he cocks it up. So you'll have one practice, then for real. Graham won't be able to see it and have no practice, then he'll have to do it twice. I think that's fair.
I see.
Okay, and we've also given him the bike with the worst rear tyre.
So the first event is pretty simple, an easy obstacle course. First over 3 small logs, over a balance bar, and then a small hump to finish. A nice simple one to ease the contestants into the competition. Graham of course has to do it twice, the others only have to do it once. So Graham goes first, no practice for him, just straight into it. It's all pretty simple as he heads to the balance bar, nice and clean as you'd expect, and over the hump.
It's pretty slippery out here, guys, that's for sure.
Now onto his second lap, easily over the logs, onto the bar, and he's looking a little bit off balance, and somehow Graham, on a bike built for things much tougher than this, has managed to get a fault. His rear tyre leaving the balance bar just before clearing the end of the beam.
1 point.
1? I did that. I didn't put my feet down. I did come off the log, but I didn't put my feet down.
Not really what you expect from the man who hosts the sister show Adventure Bike TV. Now on to Christy, a nice light bike for her, opting to sit down and not stand for this. No problems there, clearly thinking about the win. Great for her, not quite as entertaining for the audience though. Nice and easy, done.
Well done.
Right, I've got to try and not snap the frame over these logs.
Now Bruce, the man who is not a fan of off-road, but seems to be doing quite a good job here.
There we go. Ah, easy. Nothing to this off-road, Lark. Don't know what you're all worried about.
How did he stay on that? And Bruce is clean as well. Yeah.
Right, Dakar next, yeah?
Yep, and through with no faults, no issues at all. So after one round, Christy and Bruce are tied for first, with Graham's early mistake dropping him down to third. Round 2, the mini hill, and let's be honest, calling it a mini hill is still pretty generous. It is however trickier than it looks. It's only a little climb, but there is a little ditch followed by a hump just before the main incline. It means that you can't really build up speed until you're on the incline itself. So, Graham's up first.
So as Graham's penalty, he has to turn around at the top and come back down again without putting his feet down.
This is the hardest bit.
He's going to put his foot
Turn
down.
around without putting your feet down.
No, he's not. No, he's
Slow
not.
skills, Joe.
No, he's not. Wow. Okay. Back down. Back to the slop. And then do it again.
I genuinely, as much as it's good fun doing it on this, would well have done it on the other bike. Because that's kind of what it was all about. But if I've got to do it on a different bike, 890 is a good one to do it on.
He was lucky he got away with that, I think.
No issues for Graham, nice and clean, even on the tight turn at the top. More on par with what we would expect from him.
Okay, and that's a clean.
Chrissy's go now, and oh, she's been caught
She's
out.
gonna fail. Yeah.
Ah, she feathered it when she should have given it a little more gas.
Really?
That was always going to end in a drop, so 5 points to Christy.
And that's a 5.
Let's check out the onboard of that.
Nearly.
Oh, I was like that then. I was
And
so
that's a
light.
5.
Wheeling back down.
The glum.
What went wrong?
Not enough throttle.
That's one of my problems.
Not
My
enough
biggest
throttle.
problem.
Yeah, you've got to start going when you go down here, really.
I tell you what it was, is that I felt it and I was like, because I knew I was in
Just
first,
feathered off. just use a little bit of clutch and drive up it. It's all in the clutch.
All in the clutch.
It's all in the clutch.
Now Bruce, and I'm worried about his clearance, but no, he's over the hump fine, and well, he's just made it look easy. It wasn't flashy or anything exciting. His little bike just slowly and neatly went up the bank for a clean run. Very nice.
Yes! Piece of piss. Good girl, Peggy. Good girl.
So that moves Christy into last. Graham sneaks into second with Bruce still in the lead on 0 faults. Things are just getting started here at the Motorbike Olympics, and here's what you've still got in store.
I am genuinely gutted and still can't believe, looking back, that I couldn't get my bike going. It was starting at home before I brought it there.
Way to go, wasting the budget on a bike that won't start, Graham.
It was working at home, and I can't say any more than that.
Yeah, I find it really bizarre how, you know, oh, it was working before, you know, and then you get to Sweetlands and not even a team of mechanics could revive it, could bring it back to life.
Surely the gutted look on my face told you genuinely I wanted to ride that bike.
I think the look of, oh, this is the budget money in my back pocket. That was the look on your face.
No, I had to put an extra 25 quid into that to get that bike as well.
Irrespective of all that, I think we can all agree I win on the moral high ground, surely, because I didn't cheat. Irrespective of that, folks, find out who actually wins in the last episode of the series.
I'm not sure I'd go so far as to say cheating. Maybe moulding the rules is a better way of putting it.
Improvising.
Improvising. Anyway, on that note, I wanted to get out and try riding an electric motorbike, and a very, very specific electric motorbike. So I met up with a pal to go for a ride. There's one particular bike that I have been absolutely dying to ride ever since it first came out, and that's the Harley Davison Livewire. And who better to go riding with and to have a chat about it than the man who's probably ridden more miles on this bike than anybody else in the world, and that man is Charley Boorman.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. No, I suppose that I've ridden more miles on it, but unless the people who tested it. And actually, what's interesting about this bike is this bike was because you're talking about miles and people doing miles on them. And what was interesting about this bike, and one of the reasons why we chose it for our adventure going up, was because they'd spent about 4 or 5 years developing it, and then they took this around the world and got all sorts of people to ride it and sort of give their comments about it. So by the time we got hold of this bike, you know, they had really done an enormous amount of miles and R&D and all that kind of stuff.
In which case, I apologise to anybody from Harley-Davidson or their associated teams.
No, I still rode more than they had. So when we really started looking seriously at going electric, you know, we spoke to all the big manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Triumph as well. None of them had any bikes that were capable of doing it, and then we spoke to Zero, and Harley Davison came up, and anyway we chose Harley Davison. I think they seem to be the one that has the nicest package and certainly the nicest looking bike.
Yeah.
And plus the fact, the idea that you would say to people, yes, we're going on another long way adventure, and that we're going on electric bikes. And people go, oh God, electric bikes! Wow, that's going to be really tough. And then they go, well, who's making them? You say Harley Davison.
Everyone goes,
and
what?
and then people go, what?
I still remember the reaction. It was
Yeah, no, it was.
Really?
It's extraordinary. And not only is it, the reaction that it's Harley Davison and that it's electric and, all that kind of stuff, and people go, well, there's no noise. I mean, Harley Davidson is synonymous to big noise.
The opposite.
Once we decided to go with Harley, then they were so on board with the whole thing.
Because the bikes that you rode, we'll come back to this because this is your bikes. We're going to come back to this in a second. But the bikes you rode on the long way up trip were reasonably modified, not kind of super heavily modified, but they had a few modifications, didn't they?
Yeah, no, they did. No, I think it was quite a lot, really, because we wanted this naked sports bike to be an adventure bike, a GS, is what we wanted. And Harley actually said, when we approached them first, they thought, God, this is brilliant timing, absolutely fantastic. They can take our Pan Americas across, or the Pan American bikes that they've just launched now, they can take those. And when we said we want an adventure bike, and they go, fantastic, you can have these. And then we go, well, we want you to make the electric, your Livewire. And they were thinking, we've just spent all this money making this and all the money making the Pan America, and now you want us to bring them together. So we did that, but they put the Pan America front end on. Yeah, they jacked up the back a little bit.
Because you had the big screens in the front as well.
Yeah, we put the big screens, and we made it all adventurous. And then this bit here was made longer so that we could have panniers and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you obviously like the bike.
Yeah.
Because you've bought. This is your bike. It's now your.
I didn't buy it.
Oh, sorry.
I don't buy bikes anymore.
Sorry. This is your bike.
No, I did. I bought this.
But you chose to have one. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting on this bike outside. There's a place down here called Moto Legends, and I was sitting outside with one of these, and this guy came up to me and he goes, "Oh man," he said, "Wow, this bike, it's wow, it's amazing, it's incredible. What is that?" I said, "Oh, it's electric." "Oh, electric." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "It's a Harley Davidson." "Oh," he said, "That's that's crap," and he just walked off.
One of the other things that is the most commonly said, certainly to me, about electric bikes is, "Oh, but you don't have the noise." And I think it's true. You're missing something kind of visceral with noise and vibration. But as I was riding here today, the more miles I do on it, the less I miss that.
Yeah.
And because it does have its own unique sound. Which
No, for sure it does. Someone very rudely said it sounds like the Ski Electric set when they were, when they were 14 years old.
Yeah, bumper cars. That's sprung to my mind.
But it does. I mean, I thought the same thing. You're going to miss the engine and stuff like that. But I think once you start giving it a ride and you start going out onto the road, and not to sound too sort of yin and yangy about it, but two things happen. Once you take the engine away, I find it takes a bit of time to get used to the speed, because I don't think you realise how much you use the note of the engine to determine how fast you're going. And that was a big part of it. And then once that's taken away, you've got to sort of figure out how it works. But what I found really interesting, once you take that away, you seem to have a much nicer connection to the road, because you can see it, you can feel it, there isn't this block in between, and so you feel more connected to the tarmac.
It is an entirely different riding experience, and I think you're right. I think you feel more connected to it, and I think also because you don't have the gears and the clutch, which I sort of miss, and my feet still twitches and my hands twitches every now and then. But without, not that that's never a distraction for me, but without it, you are focusing purely on where you're going and
you're learning a different way of riding as well, because you have to change your approach into a corner, because you're using the engine braking of the electric. You're not changing down gears, so there is an element of that. And then what you do realise is what you kind of miss with an engine is that as you come into a corner, you as you naturally come into a corner with a combustion engine or not, as you go around the corner, you scrub speed off. Naturally, and so as you're going around a corner, you're more aware of that natural scrubbing off the speed anyway. So you can incorporate that. Now, look, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not an eco warrior. I'm not. I mean, you've seen my garage. There's a bunch of everything, and that's only half the toys that I've got. The rest are scattered around other places. So, but I do think that there is room for all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the engine braking was something else that really surprised me. When you roll off the throttle hard, how much motor braking you're getting from it.
But what you are doing is you're harvesting as well. We were going all the way down to sea level, and we had about, I don't know, 38% or so left, which wasn't really enough for the distance that we were going.
So were they charging as you were going down?
Well, it was such a long descent. We spent 3.5, 4 hours going downhill, and by the time we got to the bottom of the Andes, and we came to more or less to sea level, we'd only done 7% of our battery, and we'd done 4 and something hours
because it was
of the most unbelievable roads, and it was mostly downhill as well.
So as much as I could just talk about your trips forever, because it's fascinating, but this bike in the real world, well, you were in the real world, but in our kind of everyday world, I should say here, what's been your experience of kind of differences in range depending on how you ride it, where you ride it? Yeah. Because they say you should be able to get 140 odd urban miles. My experience is riding the way I ride it and a bit of dual carriageway, it's more like 100. But
yeah, I mean, I think the thing that does all electric vehicles is sitting on a motorway at 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. Then you would only get 80, 85 miles out of a range. But if you're doing a bit of the countryside, like all the lanes we did today, and a bit of urban, you could easily get 100, 120 miles out of it, easily. If you're doing your 20-mile commute or 30-mile commute, it actually makes a lot of sense because you can plug it in at home and it costs £1 something to fill it, and you can get 100 miles. Let's say you get 100, 120 miles out of it. That's almost your week's
it's a huge
commute.
Yeah. So I said earlier, this is your bike and it's modified.
Yeah.
So what's different about this bike to
that one?
To the standard one?
Well, I mean, it's not like heavily modified. Yeah. The runningness of it is all the same. But on these bikes, like a lot of bikes you have now, the tail of the bike can often be, not as attractive as the bike should be. Whenever you buy these bikes, everyone talks about a tidy tail, and this one is not a tidy tail. And this one is. So I got rid of all of that, and I put it all up here. And what's great about it is the guys at Guildford Harley Davison, where you borrowed the bike off them there. Aaron is the guy, if you guys want to talk to him about the tidy tail. But the great thing about this one is we made it so that you just unbolt these 2 screws, and then you there's a little plug. You just unplug here and then put all the original stuff back and plug it in. And then there's no holes were made. There's nothing made on this to sort of ruin the original of it. So you can put it back exactly original. And what makes it nice, if you look at it this way, it makes it nice and thin, nice and tidy. Compared to this one over here, where it's all a bit more bulky.
It's obvious you love the bike. Is there anything apart from the rattly charger that you don't like about it?
Well, that tidy tail.
Yeah.
No, the rest of it I think is really good. I really like it. Harley have always done a really good job with everything nice and compact.
It's funny you say that, because with my gloves on, I find that gets in my way.
Yeah, it's only because you're not used to it.
But then I've got big hands.
But yeah, you know what they say about big hands? Small cock. But you probably won't be able to use that.
Oh yeah. Oh, he'll definitely use that.
Small hands,
Despite this being a naked kind of cafe racer-ish, it feels, the seating position does feel very Harley, and I thought the same with the Pan America.
The pegs are quite high on this one, but it is actually a very comfortable bike to ride.
I was surprised by how comfy.
Yeah. And it's got good support. The seat works really well. You get lots of nice support. So you're sitting against here. So because the acceleration of this thing is brutal, and 0 to 60 in just under 3 seconds or 3 seconds or so, and it's hard and
it's instant because it's just there. Yeah. There's no.
What's really interesting is that they have, drawn a line in the sand and said, this is what we're doing now, and by the way, we've made a naked sports bike.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the fact that for me to pick things, the only things I picked on with it, for me, and having loved riding it, outside of range and stuff, because that's a whole different discussion. But if it's only the space there, the fact that the kickstand always feels like it's about to flick backwards, and there's no USB port. If those are the only things I can find wrong with it, that says a lot about how much I liked it and how much I love riding it, which I have done. Right, one of the questions that I always ask myself is, would I have one of these bikes in my garage? It's a bit pointless asking you because we know you've got one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So let me modify the question slightly, which would be, would this be, if you could only have one bike, could this be that bike, or is it a second bike to something else?
Well, no, I mean, that's a very good question. That's what people always say, isn't it? I would have to say that, no, this isn't the bike that I would get. If I was going to only be able to have one bike and that's all, I would, it would be an adventure bike. And I think that's why adventure bikes are so popular. Also, and because they can do everything. So if you've only got one bike, then why would you buy just a sports bike? Yeah. Because you're limited to doing that. If you have an adventure bike, you can sit on the twistiest roads you can possibly imagine. And if you're a good rider, very rarely would anybody be able to catch you or even pass you, and then you can do that twisting, and then you can jump onto a motorway and sit on the autobahn for 5 or 6 hours, and then you can turn onto a dirt road that goes into a pretty gnarly dirt road, which goes into deep sand, which is not so great for a big bike, but you can do all of that. Yeah. And so if I could only have one bike, that would be it.
Yeah. On that note, a pleasure as always.
Always.
Thank
nice
you
to
so
ride
much.
with you.
Yeah,
a pleasure. And good luck with going hunting.
Thank you. I've got just enough battery power.
Just.
There's nothing quite like the pull of an electric bike.
No, it is an entirely unique experience. And one final thought about the Livewire. Harley Davison are apparently starting up an entirely electric division called Livewire, and next year there's going to be a modified and improved version that will be going for apparently about $10,000 less.
So still 20-odd thousand pounds sterling.
Yeah.
About in line with a zero then, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that means you're not going to have the sort of prestige of having a Harley badge on your bike.
This is true, but you'll pay less for it.
Very true, very true. But anyway, here's going from one bike with no sound to a bike which is all about the sound. The MV Agusta Rush. Modern bikes. Would you call them works of art? Used to be Ducati were the ones that they really stood out with their beautiful design, a real flair. These days, there's a new kid on the block, the MV Agusta, and here is the Rush. Look at it, just look at this thing. Every single part of this bike, they've paid attention to detail. First thing that grabs your attention, look at the size of that back wheel, the big solid central disc. Is there any practical purpose for it? Probably not, but it looks cool. Everywhere on this bike, it's got fins at the front, there's carbon all over the thing. If you look at all the nuts and bolts, even just the heads of them, everything is aesthetically pleasing. It is gorgeous, every single angle you look at. The headlight, when you turn on the ignition, there's a totally over-the-top, unnecessary sequence, and it is just stunning. Come all the way to the back of the bike, look at that exhaust. This has got the Rush Special Edition SC Projects titanium cans on it, and what a sound. Listen to this.
shifter. It's not the silkiest or smoothest I've ever felt, but it sounds amazing. This thing has the dual SC Projects exhaust on it. And let me whack that down a second. Have a listen to this engine note. And I was not even at the sort of proper maximum power delivery range yet. I actually think this is a better road bike than the Brutale that I rode. Feels like it's got a bit more usable power actually. It's insanely fast. Insanely fast. But it just feels... It feels like a scalpel, this thing. What's the actual seating position like? Well, the pegs are high, but they're not ridiculously high. You know, I've not got my knees up into my elbows or up around my ears or anything daft like that. The bars feel nice and wide. Levers and everything are not bad. I can reach them no problems. It's not uncomfortable having to, you know, manoeuvre around to work the brakes and the clutch. Come on, all those of you who've come across from Teapot. What's this mean? Nationals! At road legal speeds. I'm in third gear. I mean, if this bike's not even conscious, it's not even awake at these sort of speeds. It's a bumpy section of road there, believe it or not. Now, this is quite a firm ride, but it's not rock solid. Still reasonably comfortable. Ooh. Well, folks, bear with me. This bike is everything you think it's going to be. If you've ever ridden an MV Agusta, or more importantly, if you've ever ridden an inline 4, you'll know all the fun is right up in the revs, and that is where this thing comes alive. Get it north of 8,000, particularly 10, 11, and that is where the serious fun kicks in. But certainly north of 8, on that throttle, first, second gear, you can start feeling the front lifting, and it happens pretty abruptly, so you're going to have to watch that. It is a lot of fun in the higher revs. All that maximum power and torque, sort of delivered between 11 and 13 odd thousand revs, so you're really going to have to work the engine, sit in second gear probably for a lot longer than you'd be expected to normally, and that is where the fun and games will begin. It looks stunning, it handles like a knife. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, you want to know what it's like in town? Here we go. Yeah, it's not bad at all actually. The sculptured tank, you can really grip that with your knees, so that takes the weight off your wrists. I thought it might be quite heavy on your wrists, this, but it's not at all. Whack it into third. That's surprising. You can even have this in third gear and just hold 30 miles an hour. It's not juddering in the slightest. It is hard to find neutral on this unless the engine's warm. When the engine's warm, it's not too bad, but when it's cold, it's a bit of a lottery. Clutch does feel quite firm. It's certainly not unlivable. Right, let's try and find neutral. Oh, there we go, it's gone in neutral. It would do, wouldn't it? After I've made a big deal about the blooming thing. It goes in neutral, no problem. But then the engine is warm now. Surprisingly easy to ride slow, like very slow. Very balanced. Wasn't expecting that. Oh, that's a nice arse. Bike I mean, obviously. Duke. Oh, Ducati. I'd say that's a sort of competition really for the MV brand, isn't it? Ducati. They're the sort of luxury end. Personally, I think sort of MV Agusta, I think they take that to a whole new level now.
hear what this bike sounds like. This is in third gear. Oh, you put it in second and it's just on the cusp of sort of clearing its throat and screaming.
So we're back here at Crazy Horse in Bury St Edmunds, and I asked the question at the start, can motorcycles be pieces of art? Well, MV Agusta seem to think they can. They even say so on their badge. Every model in their range, from the Super Veloce, the Brutale, even the adventure bike, the Turismo, everything is stunning to look at. But I don't think anything comes close to the Rush. This thing even sounds gorgeous with that SC Projects exhaust, but to get the best out of it, you really have to have this thing screaming. It's a typical inline four. You've got to get the revs up, the gears down, at least 8,000–9,000 revs north. That's where this thing comes alive. The maximum torque, the maximum power, it's all between 11 and 13 thousand revs. That'll give you some idea of how hard you need to be revving this bike to get that maximum performance. And that is where my issue really lies with this type of bike. I think it's stunning, I think it's beautiful, but where are you going to use that sort of power on the roads around here in the UK? You're doing well north of national speed limits before the power band even kicks in, even in second gear. So where can you use it? That's my issue. Are you going to take this onto the track at 38,000 pounds? I don't think I would. But even if you did have that sort of disposable income, would you buy one? I think I probably would, but I'd have it sat in the corner as a nice little displayed piece of art, and I can sit back and admire it with my very expensive Italian beer.
I can't see why you ride a GS, Bruce, because you even make that Rush look like a teeny tiny little bag.
Yeah, but I mean, the sound is just...
I know, but the frustrating thing is, no matter how good that sounds on video, it'll never do it justice, because in person it is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we hope you have enjoyed watching our first episode, but stick with us, because throughout the credits, you're going to see all the cock-ups.
Which there are a lot of.
There are many, many of those. Anyway, see you next time, and ride safe.
But I'll just wait for that to go.
Very day.
Well, no, Ewan ran out of power. Well, he actually ran out of juice a few times. I not that there's a competition, but I never did.
What am I doing here? What's my motivation, Tom? That maximum torque. Bollocks. Whew. Now. This is a bit of a weapon. Let's like bollocks.
Maybe I'll learn something there.
We're good, we're good.
There's nothing quite like the pull of an electric bike.
No, and it is... Now this is one for Tom, because he just knocked the camera and knocked the cable out. Yeah, so 1 for Tom against 5 for me, 2 for Kristen, 1 for Bruce.
Yeah, basically.
That noise though.
Yeah, but the thing is, no matter how good that sounds on video, it'll never do it just as utter bollocks. Can we do that again?
Inform you.
Don't count on
One job, Bruce, one job.